Hi, my name is Mike Dillard, and this is Self-Made Man, the podcast for those who want to leave their mark on the world and create a legacy of honor, integrity, and achievement in every aspect of your life. I'm glad you're here, and once again, it is time to forge your destiny. Today's guest obviously needs no introduction. He is the Michael Jordan of skateboarding, and a man who has single-handedly been the torchbearer for the sport around the world for more than 35 years. When you think of skateboarding, there is only one name that comes to mind, and that is Tony Hawk. So how did he do it? How has Tony managed to become a timeless brand and build a lifelong legacy without falling from grace, as so many celebrities and athletes eventually do? Well, today we're going to find out, and we're going to get personal. As you're going to hear, Tony's made his fair share of mistakes along the way, as he's had to learn how to deal with fame, shady business partners, and what it takes to be a true partner in a relationship after his multiple marriages. We're going to talk about fatherhood, money, and what's in store for the future as he attempts to introduce the next generation of kids to skating, both in the real world and digital. Now, speaking of building a brand, make sure that you head to selfmademan.com, and I want you to check out the class with Ron Lynch called How to Write a Creative Brief for Your Business. What Ron's going to teach you in that class is how to define and create a legendary brand as well, using the same process that he used to help GoPro define theirs. It's an incredibly rare opportunity to learn this skill set from a man who's helped companies like GoPro and Samsung sell billions of dollars worth of their products. So once again, make sure you go to selfmademan.com classes and check out the one with Ron Lynch. Now, without further delay, please help me welcome the one and only Tony Hawk. Tony Hawk, welcome to Self-Made Man. It is an absolute pleasure to have you here today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I have been a fan of yours since I was a little kid. I'm 40 years old. I had one of your boards that I used to ride on every day. And my skating career did not go very far, but I spent many years in my childhood looking up to you, watching what you were doing, riding your gear. And it's been awesome to watch your progression in your career, over the last 30 years now, and the brand that you've created for yourself and what you've done for skating as a sport. And I wanted to take this opportunity to really dive into your mindset and the decisions that you've made along the way that's allowed you to do that, because it's unbelievably rare. Can you take us back to the beginning, when you first started skating, when you were first getting into competition? I've read that you were unbelievably hard on yourself when it came to just about everything that you did. You'd get extremely frustrated, and I'm wondering where that came from. Is that something that you think was just born in you, or did it come from something in your childhood and you had to just nail something and get it right? But where did that come from?
I think it came from these false expectations of playing regular sport, not regular, but team sports, and watching, TV, movies, things like that, where it's like everyone gets the home run, and you know what I mean? It was always the big Cinderella story, and everyone could perform at their best. And I just came to expect that I should be able to do my best. And so I think the best example is my first time at bat, I struck out, and then I just went and hid in a ravine because I thought I failed everyone. And obviously that was definitely inflated in terms of what I should expect, but that's just how I came to think of it. And so when I I started skating, I started off slow, but I would see these fantastical tricks in magazines and people getting airborne and doing things that seemed to defy gravity. And I expected that if I start skating, I have to learn how to do that stuff. And I got hurt along the way, but eventually figured it out. But even when I did figure it out, it wasn't as, I don't want to say satisfying, but it wasn't as extreme as I had imagined it to be in terms of my performance.
Can you paint a realistic picture of the amount of time and effort that you put in to your practice when you were young and getting started?
Well, when I really dove into it, so around the time I was 11 is when I decided I just wanted to skate and I didn't want to play team sports. And it was the exact year, I would say about halfway through the season, that they appointed my dad the president of our little league in our area. And that was the year that I had quit, or that I decided I wanted to quit. And I had to literally tell him one day when he picked me up from the skate park that I didn't want to go to baseball practice anymore. I didn't want to play anymore. And to his credit, he supported me and finished out his year as the little league president. But so at that point, I realized I didn't have any other restrictions to keep me from the skate park when I wasn't in school. So basically, after school, I would go there and be skating until at least dark, if not past dinner time, which is probably, I don't know, 4 hours a day on average.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you've noticed a difference between the kids in your generation and the kids today from a work ethic standpoint or an expectations standpoint of what's required to be the best.
Well, it wasn't that I was impatient, but I was definitely willing to put in the work, the groundwork to figure out how to do these things. I mean, the idea was, okay, I want to be able to fly in the air above the lip of a pool. And I knew that there's baby steps into that. And I feel like these days there's an attitude more that it should just happen immediately if you have the desire, and you should be credited for it. And I've seen both sides of it. I've definitely seen, especially even in my own kids, I've seen a few of them just expect that. And when they don't have that immediately, they give up. But then I see other ones that are putting in and they don't even realize they're putting in the groundwork. They're just trying to better themselves little by little. And at some point they can do these big moves. And then it's almost like they're in it so much that they don't even understand they're doing it. They're doing these moves that they dreamed about. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it's just interesting to see the shift, I think, in, I'll just say, our generation and the amount of punishment we would put ourselves through in any kind of sport or endeavor versus today. And I think you kind of nailed it earlier, where expectations are a little bit different. And I think that is unfortunate. I think that's unfortunate because the lessons learned are in the struggle, right?
Right. Yeah, I think that's the big lesson that maybe kids today aren't taking away, just because of the speed of information and the speed of expectation. And there isn't that 10,000 hour work ethic maybe that they understand. But that's not to say that there aren't people with more natural ability too. But they have to put in the groundwork too. And, that's the thing, is that some people, they may have a little bit, they may be more skewed to learn quicker, but they still have to put in the work, and they still have to learn so many other techniques that you're not seeing up front.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I had a similar story to you from a dad perspective. My dad was the best coach out on the Little League field in middle school and high school. And obviously I was coach's son, so I had to be out there, rain, shine, sleet, snow, and expectations were highest for me out of anybody. And fortunately, I was tagging a runner out one day who broke my thumb. And so I got sidelined with a cast.
Oh, wow.
Fortunately, there was a mountain bike or trail set where the baseball fields were. So I picked up my little $350 Trek mountain bike with my cast on and started riding loops every day with one hand, and was like, hey, this is kind of fun. And then 2 years later, 2 state championships in mountain biking. So that was...
oh, that's cool. Well,
yeah, it's interesting how things work out like that.
Yeah, I think mine was much more intentional from the beginning. But I love the idea that you were able to use that setback to really set a whole new set of goals.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's serendipity is a good thing sometimes. When was the Tony Hawk brand born, and who did the original art for the logo and the bottoms of your board? With the Hawk skeleton and things like that.
I started putting my name on. Well, I didn't, but I was offered to have a signature skateboard model when I was 14 years old. That was the time I turned pro. At that time, I wouldn't say I was creating a brand. I thought I was just lucky that someone wanted me to design a skateboard and put my name on it. And that didn't do very well in the beginning. Skating was very small then.
Right.
And my style of skating was not very popular, even though I was starting to do well in competition. People thought that I was more robotic and more trick oriented, and they called me a circus skater. And that didn't deter me from skating, but definitely it didn't pan out well in the general public or the marketability. And it really wasn't until I went through that first wave of success, so to speak, and was able to do other endorsements. And as my popularity started to rise more, people, my style got better and people started to recognize it a little more. I made some pretty serious mistakes in the the late 80s with licensing my name because I just didn't understand the quality control aspect of it. So I was just signing contracts left and right. Little did I know some of those contracts actually conflicted with each other in terms of what rights they had. And at some point, these products started coming into the marketplace with my name on it that I had nothing to do with, nor would I've ever approved of. And I had to actually pay to get out of a few of the deals I was in. But I learned right then that if I'm ever going to do these things going forward, I need to have the final approval. I need to have control over my brand or my likeness or my imagery. And I'd like to say I got very lucky, but I learned a lot. And then when I had the chance to do it all again, which basically skating sort of died off in the early 90s. And as it started to come back around again in the mid 90s, I was well prepared because I had already been through these missives of how to do marketing.
I've got to ask, what are some of the most horrific examples that just mortified you from a product standpoint?
Oh, wow. Well, the one deal that I signed where they took a lot of liberties was the first, what we call tech decks now, but the fingerboards they were making in the 80s were just these plastic molds. They were keychains, and they just had like a piece of paper as a graphic sort of sandwiched in between the plastic, which was fine. Like that was my hook to get into with this company. But then they started making Velcro wallets, and then they started making really terrible backpacks that supposedly fit a skateboard, but it was like this thin nylon and it would rip as soon as you put anything in it. I think the last straw for me was I went up to the company basically just to beg them to change their aesthetics and their artwork because they were blatantly ripping off other skate companies and then putting my name where the skate company logo would be. And it just seemed it was cheesy for one, but it was just so, there was no effort being put into it. So I went there and I said, I need you to really step back and put some quality into this stuff. And you can't just put my name on anything you want. And they said, actually, we can. That was their reply to me. And while he's telling me this is true. He had a bunch of, this guy in his office had sort of a trophy case behind him of products. And there was a roll of toilet paper that said Tony Hawk gear on it that kept distracting me from what he was saying. This is so true. And I said, what is that? What is this toilet paper? And he said, oh, that's just a joke because one of our retailers said, oh, you can put Tony Hawk's name on anything, even toilet paper, and it would sell.
Yeah. And
so we made that for him as a joke. But as he's telling me that, he thought it was all in jest, and I realized that he only saw me as a brand, not as a brand, but as a commodity. He didn't see me as a person or someone with integrity or someone that worried about my future. And I realized that I was never going to get the right sort of support or authenticity with this company. And that was the moment where I decided I was going to break off with him.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's tough. That's tough
so it's not like that product ever came to fruition, but it told me a lot about how they see me and their approach to business.
Yeah. I just, that's putting your name out there and giving power to other people is a scary deal.
Yeah. And I was 19, so it was like I was getting whatever, maybe $5,000 guarantees, and everything just seemed crazy and extravagant, and I was invincible, and I didn't see that it was all going to come crashing down if I didn't really take charge of it.
Most young athletes or celebrities of any kind who have the kind of success you were having at that age tend to make some really poor decisions that could end a career or bring a reputation down. And it seems like you missed all of those, and the decisions that you made, were right. How did you do that at such a young age? Was that a result of your parents and what they taught you, or just kind of a gut instinct? But where did that come from?
I don't think I did miss them, because these products were out there. I think that I got lucky in that, for one, it was the 80s and it was a little more forgivable to have cheesy products out there. But also, it was not in the age of social media, where one mistake just gets amplified into nonsense. And so, because that's sort of, and there was a popularity arc in skateboarding. So once that died down and it started to come back into favor again, like I said, in the mid 90s, I was well prepared to make better choices. So it didn't miss me. It was just more that I did it at a time when
wasn't seen.
Yeah, it wasn't what it seemed. And so when I got the chance to work on other licensing and endorsements in the 90s, including my video game, I held out for full approval and control over the final product. And that was a battle, because a lot of companies, especially the bigger corporate companies, they didn't ever give that sort of approval to any people that were endorsing their products. Luckily, through a few successes, I got enough clout that I was able to demand that, and without any sort of pushback. And so, like in the case of my video game, I said I want final approval over all aspects of it if it's going to include my name. And I did the work. I mean, I was definitely part of the design process and the development of it for almost 3 years. So that wasn't hard for me, and it was it was born out of passion. I loved it. I knew that I wanted to do something fun with a video game, and I knew that I could bring in the authenticity to the actual product, but I never imagined it was going to resonate beyond just the skate world.
What happened with that game? I've read that was a commercial success that really exceeded all of your expectations. And what was that like?
Well, just the fact that we got to do a sequel, that was already exceeding expectations. So I knew that the game was fun. I mean, I played video games all growing up, so I understood what makes a fun game. And I knew that we had something that was enjoyable to play and was fun, even just in terms of free roaming gameplay, where it's not just time challenges. And so, but skateboarding wasn't really popular at the time. So it was more of a fun, for me, it was like a passion project that I thought, this will be cool among skaters. Maybe it'll get skaters to buy PlayStations. But beyond that, I don't see it taking off, because skateboarding is just not popular. But I think in a lot of ways, that game helped to make skateboarding popular, because kids did really enjoy the gameplay of it. And there's all kinds of other sort of perfect storm elements with the X Games had just started. Kids were rediscovering skateboarding. They recognized the evolution that skating had gone through, and the sort of tricks that were being done, and the idea that they were able to go and do it at any given time at their own pace. And so there were all those elements as well. And then when the game actually took off, I remember them calling me maybe about a month before it was released, Activision, and they offered me a buyout of future royalties. Which
interesting, yeah.
Which was a huge number. I mean, I wouldn't, at the time, I had never heard anyone offer anything over say $100,000 for a long-term endorsement, and they were offering me $500,000 to buy out future royalties, and that seemed crazy to me, and it seemed like I would be crazy to give that up. But I had just found myself in a pretty good financial position because I had just bought a new house that I could afford, and other endorsements and the X Games were starting to grow. And so I said I'd take a chance, and it felt crazy to me at the time, but I knew if they're, I had enough savvy that to know that if they're offering me that much money up front before the game is even released, that there's something behind it.
It's going to be worth something for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd say biggest financial windfall of your career, probably.
Yeah. It changed my life. Absolutely. In terms of finances, in terms of opportunity, and in terms of recognition. And that is when I would say, if you're asking me about when I became a brand, that's when I became a brand.
How many copies did Tony Hawk's Pro Skater end up selling over the years?
I don't have the number on exact copies, but I know that in terms of the amount of money that Activision was making, it was over $1 billion.
Wow. Unbelievable. That's cool. So I have a bit of a personal question to ask you that we discuss here on the channel pretty often whenever the opportunity strikes. And it is around raising your kids in, a situation of privilege, right? Or abundance. And I'm 40. I have a 7-year-old. A lot of my other friends are successful entrepreneurs with kids. And, all of us who've really achieved something did so out of this frustration or pain or, deep desire to accomplish something that bred hunger. And you're raising kids now who are growing up quite comfortably, and maybe there's no, pain or challenge or fear to push and create that hunger within them. How do you teach your kids about money, about responsibility, work ethic, and things like that?
Well, I think for one is to let them fend for themselves in some ways, or earn whatever it is that they're trying to get to or to acquire. It's tricky for me because, like, my oldest son, he grew up at a time when things were a struggle. So he has seen it both ways, and even though it was tricky for him growing up, it definitely gave him a better sense of values and work ethic, and he wants to make his own way. And my other kids are they are motivated, I think, in a lot of ways, though, because of my recognition factor. It makes them want to work hard at it, because there is a sort of perception that they have it easy. Like I've made it big. They have it easy. They don't have to worry, and they want to fight against that. So there's this sort of many layers to it, and it kind of works. It's a weird dynamic like that where people just think that, oh, you're Tony Hawk's son, you don't have to work a day in your life, and they strive to make it on their own more so. And for instance, my 19-year-old son, he goes to college. He's home for the summer, and while he's home for the summer, he does DoorDash deliveries.
Cool.
And even though that might seem trivial, and maybe, and I don't want to bash anyone with a job. Like, I think that if you have the desire and the ethics to work for a living, I absolutely respect and admire that. But I think that on the outside perspective, people think, well, why is he doing that? He's not making much. He's not making hardly anything. I'm proud of him, because he wants to make something and he wants to do it. And he took it upon himself. He got motivated, and he actually went and got a job, and one that allows him to still follow other passions as well. So that's the long and the short of what it's like for my kids. And I hope that, if nothing else, I've led by example, that you gotta hustle, and you got to go out there and make it for yourself.
Very cool. Yeah, that's tough, but I love that he's taken the initiative to go out and do that. For me, I remember my dad made me get a job on my 16th birthday. He's like, welcome to 16. You're now eligible to have a career here in the state of Texas. Let's go. So.
Yeah, I think my lesson in that was that I really wanted to skimboard when I was younger, and they were hard to come by. There weren't many companies making them. And my dad said, you got to earn money if you want to get a skimboard. And I went and got a paper route just for that whole purpose.
Nice. One more question on the personal side that I think our audience will find really, really valuable is on the marriage side. You've had four wives now. I've been divorced as well. And I wanted to know if there's anything you're willing to share when it comes to going through something like that, lessons learned, mistakes to avoid, because that's something that can just blow up a man's life in a pretty big way.
Yeah, I think my biggest issue, well, beyond sort of being attracting the not the wrong, but just a different dynamic of partner, was more of a it was more based on compulsive behaviors and sort of a lack of self-view. But I think that mostly it was the way that I was raised. You know, my parents were from the 50s, and there wasn't much, I don't want to say nurturing, there wasn't much love openly. And I was very adverse to intimacy. So I had these sort of structured ways that I thought marriage and family worked through the years. And it just wasn't like that. You know, there was much more effort that I should have put out there, and more of a compromise that I should have been willing to make. You know, I thought that if I'm the breadwinner, then I should just be able to do whatever the hell I want and travel and do that. And that is clearly not how your life should work if you're trying to make a partnership. And so I think the lesson was to embrace intimacy and embrace your own uncomfortability and be able to be in the moment and not distract yourself. I think my greatest mistake through the years was the art of distraction. And so if things got tricky at home, my response was to just keep getting busier and travel more and take every opportunity I had. Every opportunity that was presented to me, even if it wasn't something that was important or or should have been a priority. And you can get caught up in that, especially if you get if you get a lot of success. It's really easy to get caught up in that. And the celebrity aspect too. I mean, it's the worst drug of all. And I definitely had years where I was just so caught up in that sort of hype and lifestyle that it was at a cost of my own family. So, I take just as much blame as in when I was with, but for sure, it took me a long time to figure that out, and probably too long.
Were there any resources, people, books, retreats, anything that helped you navigate that?
I definitely had a good therapist, but and just really listening to the type of people that you respect. I don't know. I don't have one sort of wow moment or some sort of book or experience. It was just more through doing the work and through making better choices.
Yeah, I think
and getting rid of compulsive behaviors. And compulsive behaviors can be very deceiving. You know, it's not just drinking or drugs. It can be the way that you approach life and the way that you distract yourself. You have to sort of reel that in.
Yeah, and absolutely. It's tough to see your own mistakes, right? Or shortcomings, whatever it may be.
It is, yeah, and I can't stress enough when you do finally recognize that. And for sure, I'm always a work in progress. I'm still trying to improve how I spend my time and how I connect with my family. But I think that when you do recognize that and you start to make amends for it, it is definitely the most gratifying thing you can do.
Very cool. Well, thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate that. One of the things that you and I have in common is a passion for charity water. And you've been a member of the Well there for a couple of years now, as have I. How did you meet Scott and get involved in that organization?
I met Scott through our mutual friend, Chris Sacca.
Oh, yeah. I've had Chris on the show.
Yeah, so Chris actually reached out to me a long time ago because I was one of the first, athletes to join Twitter, and he recognized how I was using it, and so he connected with me, and then eventually introduced me to Scott. And charity is tricky. You know, I have my own charity, and luckily our work, we can literally show concrete evidence of what we do in terms of building skate parks, like
literally
skate parks.
Right. Yeah,
it's true. And there are so many charities that are somewhat intangible of where your money goes. And I'm not saying that it's not going towards good, but a lot of it, it's just going to research, or it's going to administrative. And you don't really know how you're making a difference with that donation. With Charity Water, it's so direct and obvious that I love that model, and I loved Scott's passion, and it was an obvious need. Clean water, you know, it can literally save thousands of lives at a time. And so I signed on pretty much right away, just in terms of donating a birthday. And then I got invited to one of their trips in Ethiopia, and that's when I was really empowered and changed in terms of how deeply I wanted to support it. And that's when I became a WELL member from then.
Very cool. Well, we have to talk about the Tony Hawk Foundation. You guys have built nearly 600 skate parks around the U.S. That's absolutely amazing. How do you do it? Like, what's that process look like? Who's out in the field picking locations? What does it cost to build a skate park, and what have you seen come as a result?
So, well, the whole basis around the foundation is that we try to empower communities that want to help themselves. So if we see a group that's either trying to raise funds or petition a city or raise awareness, we have a sort of guidebook for them, and we give them the resources. We don't want to be a group that just comes in, decides this city needs a skate park, and we wave a magic wand and we get all the accolades. We really want it to be that they have the sense of pride and ownership, and that they're the ones that have done the heavy lifting for it. And we make our money go a long way. So our biggest grant is $25,000 each round of applications. And that may not seem like a lot, but that's usually the endorsement they need to sort of put them over the edge for getting the park finished or getting matching donations. And so to date, we've been going 16 years. We've given away over $6 million, and that's helped to fund almost 600 parks. I mean, it's definitely the work I'm most proud of, but I want to say that we're more the resource center, and the community is the ones that are doing the work.
Yeah, that's amazing. I kind of feel like you're single-handedly keeping the sport in the limelight and helping to create a new generation. And along those lines, where do you see skating today?
I think skating is in a really good place. It's not on the trajectory it was in terms of rising in popularity, but I feel like the foundation is set, and it's just part of our society now, especially in the U.S., where kids choose to skate as likely as they choose to play soccer or basketball. And that's something that I never imagined I would see in my lifetime or at all. Because when I started skating, it was you were an outcast immediately. You were labeled as something, that like it was nerdy or it was uncool. And if you skated, you were already marked. And now it's just another thing that kids do. But also there is a growing interest in terms of global skating, because it will be in the Olympics in Tokyo in 2020.
Awesome.
So that push is coming up very quickly. In fact, I have a meeting tomorrow about the whole thing, but that's exciting in some ways. In other ways, for me, I have mixed feelings, because I feel like skating is as popular, if not more popular than a lot of Olympic sports. And at this point, for the IOC not to recognize skateboarding would just be an obvious missive. So I feel like they need the cool factor of skating in their summer games more than we need their validation.
Yeah, there's a lot of javelin throws out there, Tony. I don't know. Right?
Yeah, I mean, how many more swimming events do we need?
Right. Very cool. So
at the same time, the silver lining is that it's going to help skateboarding's awareness internationally. And we're going to see skate teams coming from the most unlikely of places. And that to me is super exciting. So I'm supportive. It's just that I still have this sort of old school pride that's like, well, yeah, you finally figured it out. Here we are. We've always been here.
Well, talk to me about the future of your career in skating, because you have two pieces out there that are really in pursuit of that I can see. You've got Tony Hawk's Skate Jam, which is a new game coming out for mobile devices. That's huge. And then you've also got your YouTube channel, Ride, which has got 1.6 million subscribers. So you're on it, right? What's your thinking behind both of those?
Well, Ride channel is more of a skate centric content location. So it's our YouTube channel, but it's not just my stuff. It's more general skate content. And, there wasn't anything like that on YouTube at the time we started. And originally we were actually funded by Google for the first couple of years to do that, because they recognized that we had something unique. For the game, I'm excited to be sort of back in the gaming world and by way of a mobile platform. So we're doing Tony Hawk's Skate Jam. It has some controls that might seem familiar to people who are the fan of the original series, but it's definitely its own game, and it's something that I'm very excited about, because it's been a few years.
And when's that coming out?
October.
Okay, cool. Coming out soon. Has there been any unique challenges developing a game for mobile, because the controls are so different, right?
From the get-go.
Yeah.
I mean, the just the idea of not having tactile buttons is something new to me in terms of the types of controls that I'm used to for a skate game. But luckily, I have a sort of built-in I have a built-in target audience with my kids,
right,
and who play mobile games much more than I do. So they're probably the best focus group I could ask for.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're getting a lot of audience feedback for sure.
Yeah.
So what is the future for you? You're 50 or about to be 50, and okay, yeah. So skating's probably going to become less and less of an activity that you're involved in on a professional level. And I think you retired not too long ago, but when was that?
Well, I never.
Not officially yet.
Retirement is a weird term in skateboarding, because I stopped competing in around 2000.
Okay.
And so people thought that was some sort of retirement, but that just meant that I was able to do a lot more other types of skating events, exhibitions, tours, and things like that. If anything, it actually allowed me to start skating better and more. And I'm, putting out video parts and stuff like that. So the retirement is a strange terminology in skateboarding, because you can be a very effective pro skater without competing.
I was going to say, you pulled off a 900 just 2 years ago, right? A year and a half ago.
Right. Yeah. So, and I'm still, I know that I'm not invincible, and I know obviously that age is a factor, but for now I'm still able to skate pretty well. I can still do most of the tricks I'm known for, and I still do exhibitions, things like that. So I'm sort of riding the wave while I can, and having a blast. I mean, I don't take this for granted at all. I still love what I do, and I would do it for free any day of the week. But there are still these big opportunities to skate, and if I feel like I'm walking the walk, why not?
Do you sit down and map out a vision for your future at times, maybe the next 5-10 years as far as goals go? Is that something you do on a conscious, deliberate level, or is it just kind of originating?
I don't think I'm that methodical about it, but definitely trying to plant seeds for a future in terms of how I can sort of step back from the spotlight of the companies I started and just help them to grow without my direct involvement, and also investing in companies I believe in, and more in recent years, because I'm trying to sort of set us up for a future that doesn't require so much crazy schedule.
Right. What kind of investments are you interested in most?
Well, I love a lot of the tech stuff. And for instance, I was one of the early investors in Blue Bottle Coffee.
Oh, cool.
I was an investor in DocuSign that just went public, and a few others like that in that type of space. I have a few on the burner.
That's awesome. And at least in my case, getting access to deals like that is really all a matter of your circle and who you know. Have you found that to be the case as well?
Absolutely. I mean, just exactly how we explained our connection with Chris Sacca, how that led me to Charity Water and then eventually to do this with you. And there's been a few instances like that. I mean, I just invested in a pretty big crypto fund based on a mutual friend of someone I trust in that space. And I know that I know the risks involved, but I feel like I'm with the right people.
Interesting. Would we know the name of it? Was it Pantera or?
Jeremy Gardner.
Okay, cool. Very cool. Yeah, that's an exciting space. That's something I've been involved in for 5 or 6 years now, and it's been a hell of a ride.
I got into it pretty early on, so I feel very lucky. In fact, I would say our last Christmas was brought to you by Bitcoin.
Yeah, likewise. I bought my first in 2013.
Me too.
Yeah, and I don't know about you. I bought it at Mt. Gox, and then I got the result of the hack wiped me out, and I had to start over again.
Oh yeah, luckily I skipped that bomb.
Oh, nice. Yeah, but it's pretty funny. We're shopping for houses on Lake Austin here on the water. I'm like, yep, go Bitcoin. We'll give it another year. See how it goes.
Yeah, but like I'm not. And like I said, I absolutely understand the risk and the volatility there. So I'm trying to spread out and be in more tangible spaces too.
Without a doubt. That's awesome. Well, I had no idea you were involved that much in the tech space, but that's really cool. Well, Tony, I don't want to take advantage of your time here today, but this has been an absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for diving into some pretty personal questions here. Where can people go to connect with you, to support the foundation? I've just made a donation to you guys here this morning. And I would love it if our audience would do the same. And so where should they go to connect?
Oh, thank you. TonyHawkFoundation.org. That's our main site. And we have a few new initiatives. We're working with the Ralph C. Wood Foundation for doing a lot of parks in Michigan and in New York. And we're just excited to support as many projects as we can and give more kids the opportunity at a safe place to skate. So I appreciate any support.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there any social media account where you're most active that you would suggest people to go connect to you on?
Well, I'm at Tony Hawk on all the platforms, but I would say I'm most active on Instagram stories.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, Tony, thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure. I'm really grateful for the time today. I know you're there with your family, and this has just been awesome. So thank you again.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Guys, gals, thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week. Take care.
I've been running for so long. I'm clear about the path I was on. I was breathless, my heart restless. Every turn felt like it was wrong, but I kept going to show I was strong.